The truth was, even if God existed, he wasn't the reason the economy had collapsed. Ask any of the old-timers, the ones who were too worn down to bother with lying, and they'd tell you the real culprit in Babylon's slow death: magic. Several of the other abandoned buildings on the street had been torn down years earlier, leaving behind lots choked with weeds and trash. Yet for some reason, this old church had been allowed to remain. Maybe some people believed God would come back to Babylon after all. As I walked up to what used to be the aisle, a familiar uniformed officer turned to call out, "Hey, Prospero, you don't call, you don't write." "I came to collect that 20 you owe me, Santini." He'd been one of the few patrolmen who hadn't treated me like a pariah back when I was still a beat cop. He motioned toward his crotch. "I got your money right here." "You'd have to pay me a lot more than $20, Jimmy." Raucous laughter echoed through the old sanctuary. Murder scenes are usually tense for obvious reasons, and any chance to add a little levity to the grim task of cataloging some poor bastard's final moments was leaped on with forced enthusiasm. Farther up the aisle, I spotted Duffy standing next to the altar. Even on a good day, he wore a perma-frown, but this night, along with the snow and the wreckage and the blood, his expression was downright grim. He was speaking to Valerie Fredrickson, one of my friends from the CSI squad. Val was a fellow adept and one of my few allies at the BPD. Behind the pair, a sheet covered the body, which was splayed out on the stone altar like a sacrifice to old pagan gods. In the snow in front of the altar, someone had painted a symbol using a liquid that was too darkly red to be anything but blood. "Prospero," Val called. "Hey, Morales." I waved and picked up my speed to get the shit circus underway. Circumventing the bloody symbol, I joined them by the altar. "Who we got?" "That's what I was hoping you could tell us." His tone hinted that asking us for help was costing him a lot of pride. Detective Pat Duffy used to be on the homicide beat for a precinct in an upscale mundane area of Babylon. But last year, after his work on a case involving the murder of Babylon's former mayor, he'd been made head of homicide for the Cauldron Precinct, which handled crimes in Babylon's magical slums. Before his promotion, Duffy had rejected Gardner's invitation to join the MEA task force. Twice. None of us could figure out why he'd been so opposed to the move, especially since as an adept, he shouldn't have problems working under and beside other lefties. But apparently he did. Now every time any of us had to work with him, it was twice as difficult and 5 times as frustrating as it should be. But since he was Captain Robert Eldridge's new favorite, we were forced to deal with the guy. "Who called it in?" I asked. Standing beside me with his arms crossed, Morales loomed like a large shadow. Even though he outranked me, I was the one who knew the covens best, so he was letting me take the lead. "Homeless freakhead across the street called it in," Duffy said, using the term for a potion addict. "Unis found him in an abandoned gas station across from the church. He gave an initial statement, but it didn't make much sense. He was spouting nonsense and half frozen, so I called an ambulance to take him to Babylon General. Once he's lucid, I'll head over to get an official statement." "All right." I blew out a breath. "Let's see who's behind curtain number 1. Val flicked back the covering. The limbs had been severed from the trunk and arranged around the body. "Where's the head?" Morales asked. Val nodded toward a covered statue next to the altar. Wearing a grim expression, she slowly pulled the sheet away. On top of a marble pedestal, a kneeling angel cradled a severed head. "Shit!" The outburst escaped my lips like a bullet from a gun muzzle. The sound echoed off the crumbling walls and the banks of snow. I felt rather than saw everyone in the ruins freeze. Tension rose like a plasma dome over the crime scene. The empty eye sockets and the blackened potion burn in the center of the forehead were important clues, but they hadn't unsettled me. Instead, it was the bull ring hanging from the nose and the close-cropped gray hair that made my